Unity in Diversity, Part 4. Various heavens are spoken of in the Brahman portions of the Vedas, but the philosophical teachings of the Upanishads gives up the idea of going to heaven. Happiness is not in this heaven or in that heaven, it is in the soul. Places do not signify anything. Here is another passage which shows the different states of realization. In the heaven of the forefathers, as a man sees things in a dream, so the real truth is seen. As in dreams we see things hazy and not so distinct, so we see the reality there. There is another heaven called the Gandharva, in which it is still less clear. As a man sees his own reflection in the water, so is the reality seen there. The highest heaven of which the Hindus conceive is called the Brahmalok, and in this the truth is seen much more clearly, like light and shade, but not yet quite distinctly. But as a man sees his own face in the mirror, perfect, distinct, and clear, so is the truth shining in the soul of man. The highest heaven, therefore, is in our own souls. The greatest temple of worship is the human soul, greater than all heavens, says the Vedanta. For in no heaven anywhere can we understand the reality as distinctly and clearly as in this life, in our own soul. Changing places does not help one much. I thought while I was in India that the cave could give me a clearer vision. I found it was not so. Then I thought the forest would do so, then Varanasi. But the same difficulty existed everywhere, because we make our own worlds. If I am evil, the whole world is evil to me. That is what the Upanishad says. And the same thing applies to all worlds. If I die and go to heaven, I should find the same. For until I am pure, it is no use going to caves or forests or to Varanasi or to heavens. And if I have polished my mirror, it does not matter where I live. I get the reality just as it is. So it is useless running hither and thither and spending energy in vain, which should be spent only in polishing the mirror. The same idea is expressed again. None sees him, none sees his form with the eyes. It is in the mind, in the pure mind, and he is seen, and thus immortality is gained. Those who were at the summer lectures of Raj Yoga will be interested to know that what was taught then was a different kind of yoga. The yoga which we are now considering consists chiefly in controlling the senses. When the senses are held as slaves by the human soul, when they can no longer disturb the mind, then the yogi has reached the goal. When all vain desires of the heart have been given up, then this very mortal becomes immortal. Then he becomes one with God even here. When all the knots of the heart are cut asunder, then the mortal becomes immortal and he enjoys Brahman here on this earth, nowhere else. A few words ought to be said here. You will generally hear this that Vedanta, this philosophy, and other Eastern systems look only to something beyond, letting go the enjoyments and struggles of this life. This idea is entirely wrong. It is only ignorant people who do not know anything of Eastern thought and never had brain enough to understand anything of its real teaching that tell you so. On the contrary, we read in our scriptures that our philosophers do not want to go to other worlds, but depreciate them as places where people weep and laugh for a little while only and then die. As long as we are weak, we shall have to go through all these experiences. But whatever is true is here, and that is the human soul. And this also is insisted upon that by committing suicide, we cannot escape the inevitable, that we cannot evade it. But the right path is hard to find. The Hindu is just as practical as the Western, only to differ in our views of life. The one says, build a good house. Let us have good clothes and food, intellectual culture, and so on. And for this is the whole of life, and in that he is immensely practical. But the Hindu says, True knowledge of the world means knowledge of the soul, metaphysics, and he wants to enjoy that life. In America, there was a great agnostic, a very noble man, a very good man, and a very fine speaker. He lectured on religion, which he said was of no use. Why bother our heads about other worlds? He employed this simile: we have an orange here, and we want to squeeze all the juice out of it. I met him once and said, I agree with you entirely. I have some fruit and I too want to squeeze out the juice. Our difference lies in the choice of the fruit. You want an orange and I prefer a mango. You think it is enough to live here and eat and drink and have little scientific knowledge, but you have no right to say that that will suit all tastes. Such a conception is nothing to me. If I had only to learn how an apple falls to the ground or how an electric current shakes my nerves, I would commit suicide. I want to understand the heart of things, the very kernel itself. Your study is the manifestation of life, mine is the life itself. My philosophy says you must know that and drive out from your mind all thoughts of heaven and hell and all other superstitions, even though they exist in the same sense that this world exists. I must know the heart of this life, its very essence, what it is, not only how it works and what are its manifestations. I want the why of everything. I leave the how to children. As one of your countrymen said, while I'm smoking a cigarette, if I were to write a book, it would be the science of a cigarette. It is good and great to be scientific. God bless them in their search. But when a man says that is all, he is talking foolishly, not caring to know the reason of life, never studying existence itself. I may argue that all your knowledge is nonsense without a basis. You are studying the manifestations of life. And when I ask you what life is, you say you do not know. You are welcome to your study, but leave me to mine.